Out that this year alone we'll spend $27 million to take care of our former presidents.
And their families.
And their families. And when Harry Truman left office, the annual budget for then former President Truman was about $64,000. So why has it increased over the last 40 years?
Because it's the nature of bureaucracy and the nature of government to increase everything. Why? It's just the way it operates. It's the way it. I remember fondly Harry Truman, after he left the White House, going back to the same house he had left when he came to Washington as a senator, the same house in Independence, Missouri. I remember pictures of him carrying his own baggage into the house. That hasn't happened since Harry Truman. They get so much money for staff, they get money for expenses, they get they live high on the hog at our expense. They spend 4 years as President of the United States, or 8 years as President of the United States, and they retire in luxury.
Has anything surprised you in the last 50 years? Any more?
I would have to say it has not. It surprised when I first came to Washington as a young reporter 50 years ago. I was shocked. I came from the Salt Lake out in Utah, and I'd been brought up on the other side of the Rocky Mountains, and I had not been exposed to Washington, and I thought these were big and important people who inhabited the marble halls here in Washington, and I was shocked at what I found out, and it's gotten worse since, I'm sorry to say, and I got over being shocked 50 years ago.
How many books have you written?
I've written, I haven't counted them, I've written a good dozen, maybe a little more than a dozen. Mostly, I've done a few books on fiction. I'm working on one now. I'm working on my memoirs now. Parkinson's causes you to shake a bit physically, but you're not as articulate as you used to be. It's not that the thoughts aren't there. It's not that you're unable to put them down on paper. It's that your muscles tighten and your tongue doesn't work the way it used to be. And so you're not as articulate as you used to be. But the one thing I can still do is write, so that's what I do. Much slower. I use a PC now. And the PC, I get too many L's and too many Z's, and I don't type as fast as I used to. But I'm working on my memoirs now.
And where do you do that? In your home, in your office?
At home. I run into the office on a pretty regular basis. But I have a fax there, and they send me the column, and I look it over. They basically write it. They basically do the reporting. I'm talking about my staff. And then I'm chairman of Citizens Against Government Waste. That's the reason that I did this Washington Money Go Round book, is to expose the horrendous waste of the taxpayers' money. As I said at the beginning of the show, the most inefficient way that you can accomplish anything, whatever it is you wish to accomplish, is to let the federal government do it. It's the most inefficient way to do it. So anything we can do without letting the federal government spend our money on projects that somebody else could handle cheaper, we ought to let somebody else handle it.
Is there something in particular, or a column that you've written in particular, that you're most proud of over the years that you've done this?
Well, I always hope that it's the column that I'm working on. The hardest one, I guess, the most difficult one for me to crack was the fact that the CIA had hired mobsters, mafia mobsters, to attempt to bump off Fidel Castro.